Now call the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Mr. Smither will explain how those of you watching remotely can participate.
Good evening. Anybody who would like to join us tonight via Zoom during the public comment period, if you wish to speak, you can use Zoom to raise your hand or call in by simply pressing *9 on your phone. We look forward to hearing from you.
A couple introductions. To my far left is Mr. David Williams, Supervisor for District 1. Next to him is Mr. Nordvig, who is not in attendance from District 2. Next to him is Mr. Ned Smither, our County Administrator. To my right is Mr. Mike Byerly from District 3. To his right is Mr. Bill Cox from District 4. And at the end of the table is our County Attorney, Tom Latchney. All right. Okay, now can we, Mr. Riley, can you lead us in our pledge?
Sure. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Williams, will you lead us in the invocation?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all of our many blessings and another wonderful day in Powhatan County. Amen.
All right. Any requests to postpone or amend the agenda tonight?
Move for approval, Mrs. Chairman, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
Or it could be Mrs. Chairman, couldn't
Yeah,
it?
it works. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, first we'll move on to the discussion of the special election process for District 2 Board of Supervisors. I emailed you guys a couple of questions that I figured we could kind of use as a launch pad to discuss tonight. Also, we do have Karen Alexander here to help us if we have any questions regarding the whole election process. I think she has a couple updates that she can give us when we get to that section, so that'll be beneficial. Is to explain to the audience, we have Mr. Nordvig's resignation. His term ends on January 31st, and after that, we have 45 days to appoint someone. If we do not make an appointment within 45 days, I believe the circuit court judge will then make an appointment. So I think the first question is for the timeline of applicants, do we want to wait out the full 45 days? Do we want to get somebody in here quicker than that? Just because we're getting into a budget season, which it might be more beneficial to have somebody here, with the meetings earlier rather than later. Can I open that up for some discussion? Does anybody have a preference?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
anyone coming in is not going to understand the budget process anyway. I would think that we would want to have applications in, people that are interested, certainly within 30 days, 1st of March, that would then give us roughly 15 days to come to some type of agreement if we have a candidate we can agree on. So you can't wait 45 days if you're going to make a decision. And you've got to have information and some time to talk about folks. So my preference would be for us to make it known to the community that we'll be looking at an application. I have some ideas on that. We get to that point with before March 1st and giving us roughly 2 weeks thereafter to make a decision. So that's.
So you want to basically go to March 1st. Okay, not earlier than that, 30 days.
If you want to do it earlier, that's fine. I'd like the ability to get the information out there. A lot of information is already out there. Okay.
Yeah, and properly advertise it, and that's another thing we probably need to discuss.
Just looking at your calendar, you have a budget workshop on March 16th. Unless you want to call a special meeting, you may want to, you either want to roll it back to the February meeting or realize you're going to have to call a special meeting because the 16th will be one day past your 45.
Okay.
So if you don't do it within the 45, your authority defaults over to the circuit court. So just realize that you probably need to go ahead and schedule a special meeting just for that
Okay.
appointment.
Okay. Mr. Williams or Mr. Byerly? Thoughts?
Madam Chair, I think what Mr. Cox is proposing is to have a cutoff date of March 31st for applications. Is that correct?
That's correct. No, March 1st.
Excuse me, March 1st. We are going through the year fast, aren't we?
On speed dial.
And what I further believe Mr. Cox is proposing, that would leave us with 2 weeks by which we could make a decision to do interviews and come to a conclusion. And I further understand from Tom's comments that we have a workshop already scheduled on March 16th. So if we want to stay within the 45 days, we will either have to move that workshop to the 15th or have another meeting prior to. Is that correct? Correct. So those are the things I understand are under discussion. Is that correct?
That's correct. We would also have to allocate time to do some interviews.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just looking at a calendar.
Well, the question is then, do you start the interview process after you get all the applications in?
I'm sorry, let me interrupt. I realize I don't know how to do math. That's why I went to law and not math. February only has 28 days. so
Correct.
45 days will take us to the 17th.
Yeah.
So my apologies. I was thinking standard 30-day months, but with 28 days in February.
Okay,
See, the
so let
budget
me go
workshop
back to
would-
my third pillar of what we're discussing. And that is that we are now okay with that meeting on the 16th coming to fulfilling our obligation of 45 days. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, you'll have 1 day to spare, yes.
Okay. So going back to Mr. Cox's question, do you want to start the interview process after closure of application date? Or do you want to do the interviews as you receive them going through into the cutoff date?
I would prefer to do it after that we all have them in one lump sum.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
it depends, I think, on how many applications you get. You're making the assumption that you're going to interview everybody that sends an application in. If you had 30 applications, you probably wouldn't interview all of them. If you had 6 or 7, you probably would.
Mhm.
But I would see no reason, if we've got an application, to artificially wait. I would,
I don't see 30 people wanting to do this job. But I could be wrong.
I don't think
I'm
the
not
gates are going to be
teasing.
stormed.
Exactly. Just
But-
teasing.
But I really don't care one way or the other. I don't think it makes that much difference. But in the interest of scheduling, you probably should go ahead and start once you get an application.
What if we shortened the time instead of doing I personally, I don't mind having the cutoff, mid-February. And then, I don't think we need to wait that long.
Okay.
If somebody's going to want to know, if they want to know, if they want this, they're going to apply. I don't think we need to wait. I'd say, maybe February, 12th or something like that, mid-February. And then,
It depends on, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
yes.
I think it goes back to how you're going to advertise this.
Mhm.
If you're going through Powhatan Day today and doing the conventional advertising that we do for public meetings, that may elongate the process. I'm like Tom. I had 4 years of algebra in high school, algebra 1 twice and algebra 2 twice, Tom, so don't feel bad. So it depends on, how long, or excuse me, how you're going to advertise the process. I'm like you, Ms. Carmack, I'm not sure we have to wait to the, end of, or excuse me, to the 1st of March.
Mhm.
I'm not sure we have to do that. But I would like to make sure that at least, through the conventional way that we advertise, for example, at public meetings, that we build in enough time to do that, through Powhatan today. and our
Correct. Yeah,
guidelines.
agreed. Mr. Byerly, you've been quiet.
Madam Chair, thank you. My preference in this is to move along as expeditiously and as quickly as we can. And then there's terminology that's being used that I'm not even sure that I agree. And I'll tell you what my thought is, if you're going to interview people, interview is, ask questions. We have a county that's close by, Orange, that's in the same situation. And I looked at what they were doing, and, one of the things that kind of piqued my interest is that they're asking for letters of interest, as opposed to an application. And I guess where I bring my thought processes from, this is a public seat that's elected by the people that live in District 2. I think that the citizens that live in that district should have very ample opportunity by virtue of advertising through multiple sources that we can do, Powhatan Today, social media, any way that we can. I think we probably all know that there's people already interested. To me, when I hear that word interview, I sort of raise my eyebrows a little bit, because I don't know what questions we're going to ask, and you get into, privacy laws that come into play there. It's not like we're interviewing somebody for a county administrator's job, or we're interviewing somebody for a staff job. This is a person that's elected by the people in District 2. So I don't, there's more to it than the time and the date, but to get to the parameters of that, I'm in favor of doing it as quick as possible.
Okay. Can we say mid-February? I think that would give us an appropriate time for.
That is the date that you would close.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That'll give us plenty of advertising time in the Powhatan Today.
So that's one day in one issue in Powhatan Today.
Mid-February, one issue in Powhatan Today. I think that would give us more. It should give us, yeah, it would give you 3.
3.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Yes, perfect. Let's say February 12th.
2. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, February 12th, we can close the application submittal by that date. And as far as advertising goes, I think we can get with Mr. Smither, Mr. Shardine, and discuss kind of the best ways to get that out via social media, Powhatan Today, or any other, emails to various organizations, PLI, et cetera. So we got that done. Resume. How do you, what kind of, I guess this leads to your second point, Mr. Byerly. Are we looking for a resume? Are we looking for a application? Are we going to make an application? What does this look like? A letter of intent? I mean, what's your expectation of how they are going to apply for this?
I want some information.
I think a resume for me, I'm
Well,
fine with.
Mr. Wood, could you look in my file and pull up interview information? That's what I would like, is a resume that deals with the person's education and work experiences. Do they have any community involvement? Why do they want to be a District 2 supervisor? And what do they hope to accomplish as a supervisor? Now, that's the opposite of what I saw my friend Mr. Williams, who and what I heard from Mr. Byerly is that he really didn't like this kind of a formal. So
We need
Bill, the
something
reason-
though.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, go on. I'm sorry.
Best manners. Bill, the reason I was shaking my head is I remember when I ran the first time, and I was getting together the information that I needed to run for office. When I went over to Karen's office, I never got an application. It wasn't in my packet. That was the reason I'm shaking my head. Now, I'm not saying that the information that you put up isn't good information. But at the end of the day, these people, whoever we appoint as interim, they're going to have to make their case to the people about why they deserve to be the District 2 supervisor. So it's incumbent on them to put together their resume, just like each one of us did when we decided to run for office, to make their case as to why they are to be the elected representative, for District 2. That was the reason I was shaking my head. Again, I'm not, saying that that's not good information, but I don't want to tie people down in terms of what they provide us with information in their decision-making. Ultimately, that's something that they're going to have to do when if they are going to run, I'm assuming most would in the general election. That's something that they're going to have to think about. And that's something they're going to have to communicate not only to us, but to, the people in District 2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would agree with Mr. Williams. I think that just as he stated, we didn't fill out an application, but we certainly had to convince the citizens in our district, in the county, who we were, what we were representing, what we wanted, and where we would go and how we would get there. I think the questions you had up there on the screen, if we had a really good applicant, I think they would tell us that in their letter, or application, whatever you do, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm probably leaning in the direction of what I've seen from Orange. Submit a letter telling us, why you want to be the supervisor of District 2, what makes you qualified. Those are the type of things that I would want to hear. And then, not that I'm going to give anybody any big ideas, and we got COVID going on, but if it was me, I'd round up my supporters and say, come on in with me. And here I am. It just depends on how you do this, but that's my opinion. Write a letter, tell us why you want to be the supervisor for District 2. Tell the citizens.
I think that's good. We need to give them something though in the ad, kind of to Mr. Cox's point. When we have an ad in the paper, we have to say, submit a resume, submit a letter of intent, so that people have some clue of how to, proceed. That's the only thing I would say. We have to have a little bit of specificity. I don't care what's exactly on it, but we need something. Mr. Cox?
Madam Chairman, obviously, Mr. Williams and Mr. Byerly are right. This is a decision that District 2 will make. But in the interim, we have to make a
we're making the
decision, and
decision.
we need some basic information. And I'd like to have call it a minimum level of information to start the discussion. Because we're going to have to, it's not District 2 in 45 days.
Mhm. Correct. What if we say, submit a letter of intent or resume to the following? That way we leave it up to the applicant to do as such. And we can put some basic information, kind of like you had on your, what we're looking for. I mean, we don't even know if this person is going to run, for that matter. I mean, they may not. And that brings us to the next point. I mean, do we want to specify if they, we prefer that they do not run, for election in November? Because I know you had mentioned that in Chesterfield County that they did that.
Madam Chair, I'm not going to get into that right now because that's not a hill I'm going to die on.
Okay. Okay.
And we can have that discussion later. But going back to your point and Bill's point, what is the minimum amount of information? And then what other information would you like to provide to the board that would impress upon us that you're the best person to do this job? Well, I only know there's only one job description. I think that's under the Code of Virginia, isn't it, Tom?
Yes, sir. It's very limited. They just have to live in the district and not be a felon.
Okay, so in the spirit of, what I've heard and working with, you guys and trying to get at, I think, something that all of us can agree to, I'm okay with a minimal amount of information, but I'm not limiting anything that you want to provide me as a supervisor in my decision making. If you want to provide more information that you think that would impress upon me your ability or abilities to do the job, I don't want to limit that. Just like if you want to have a letter, but if you want to also do, as Mrs. Carmack said, provide a resume or any other information, I'm open to that. I'm not going to be limiting
Right.
in my consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Why don't we, Mr. Smither, we work together with the ads and we can send those out for you guys to approve. So with some expectations on those before they go out.
Madam Chair, why don't we resolve it tonight and get on?
I don't know if we're going to get a result.
No, this is-
I don't
no,
think we can
no,
do
this
this
is-
offline.
I'm sorry, I don't think this
Yeah.
is that complicated.
It's not. I think we should just say they should have a minimum requirement, some questions of what we're looking for and,
Okay,
yeah,
the minimum requirement is resume.
Yeah.
Okay, and why do you want to?
why do you want to do on the board? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, ask,
Mhm.
if, that's fine with me. Just,
All right, is that fine with you guys?
I'm perfectly comfortable. As you said, I think that's a capital idea. You and Ned getting together and putting together something, I think you will find us fall in very quickly with whatever you cobble together.
That brings us to the next point. Do we, because you said you didn't want to discuss this tonight, Mr. Williams, but I think we should discuss this tonight. Do we want to prefer that they do we want to say that we prefer they do not run?
No, I
as a
didn't say I
candidate?
didn't want to talk about that tonight.
No, I thought you did.
No.
Okay.
No, I said this is not a hill I'm going down.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Madam Chair, we can't, that's not in our purview to make a
Okay.
decision.
So take it off.
In talking with various folks, some of y'all, I can make a case either way.
Mr. Byerly, your preference?
I'm okay.
Okay. Interviews, open versus closed.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
open.
Mr. Cox?
Madam Chair, we don't interview anybody else that way. I think when you look at 4-on-1, it's a reasonably stressful interview anyway. Not everybody's able to laugh it off like the Smither over there. And opening it up to the peanut gallery where I bring in my group of supporters is simply, I just don't think that's a good process. I think that's a wonderful process that they used up in Charlottesville, which of course where Mr. Voorhees got it.
Mhm.
And so I want a closed session.
Mr.
Madam
Williams?
Chair, let me follow up with, are you saying that you just don't want to do it for the finalists? Or are you saying that you don't want to do it, for all the applicants as well? I mean, is this an issue closed versus open for all applicants or just the final applicants? That's my question.
I'm
Madam Chair,
assuming-
for me, it's for all applicants.
Thank you.
In all interviews.
Thank you.
Okay. I would prefer closed. I think for the comfort for the applicant, it would be better if it was closed. I think that can be overwhelming for people to come in and have an interview with however many people in an audience.
Well, when we get to the election for District 2, that's not going to be that's not going to be an open election where everybody is going to know how the other person voted. I've been working in and around government for over 45 years. I've only done it one way. So I'm in favor of closed.
Mr. Byerly?
Open.
That was okay. No, if you had
Yeah,
any other
I-
comments.
It's the people's seat. And, I don't know, I don't have that experience that Mr. Williams has, but I don't know of any time when the the Board of Supervisors in Powhatan County has interviewed for anyone other than county administrator and the county attorney. I don't know when there was any other interviews where the supervisors interviewed.
Mr. Barlock, no, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah,
Mr.
no, I'm not aware of it. That's why I referred to you as
Yeah,
your
I'm
experience.
sorry.
You've been here a lot longer than I have, but I'm not aware of any.
I'll give you a little bit of history. Back when Mr. Green died in office,
Mhm.
the board did go in closed session, and the board did come out with a person that they put in the position on an interim basis. So there was no public interview.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
what, what happened with Jason Moore? There's another situation where we had a special election for Mr. Nordby.
We didn't make an interim appointment.
Right.
No interim.
It didn't meet the threshold. It
Well,
was a-
we did a quick election. We did a quick election in February, and so we,
Okay, so
Decided not to make an
there was no precedent there. Okay.
All right. Okay. So closed. That moves us to the next point. Obviously, if we don't have agreement, it could be going to the judge. So, there's no mystery there. And then to talk about the actual election itself, I'd like to invite Ms. Alexander up because I know she had a couple of updates, which might make our decision-making very easy.
Thought we just finished one and now we're looking at another one. So just to keep it brief and get to the points that I know you want to know, how soon can we have an election legally? The earliest that you can have a special election in this incident would be April 13th. You cannot combine a special election with a primary in June. So even though the June primary date has not been set by the state yet, we are under the assumption it will be June 8th. So you cannot have a special election within 55 days prior to a primary, which would mean the earliest special election the county could foresee having would be Tuesday, April 13th. Taking that into account, absentee voting would begin Friday, February 26th, and candidates would need to qualify 3 weeks from today on Friday, February 12th. Realistically, I don't know that that's possible or fair, but legally it is standing. Otherwise, if you were to wait, you could have an election anytime after that June primary. The next logical set date would be during the general election on November 2nd. Absentee voting for that particular date would begin September 17th, and candidates would need to qualify 81 days prior to that election, which would be Friday, August 13th. So that would give candidates from whenever the writ of election is issued and the advertisement is made until August 13th in order to qualify, meaning filling out all the paperwork, the petition signatures, opening their, campaign finance account and meeting with me to get the bulletin pulled together.
That was August 13th. I'm sorry.
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
Friday, August 13th.
Okay. I think logically speaking, we obviously would want to wait till the November election.
Madam Chair, I think that is the best opportunity to get the largest number of voters out to determine their next
Yeah,
supervisor.
and that gives people plenty of time to determine if they want to run and get their signatures in. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll stay
Thank
just
you.
in case you
Yeah.
have some more questions.
All right, well, that keeps that one easy. November election. Anything else regarding this, or do you all feel?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
What is the date in November, Ms. Alexander?
So it's November 2nd.
2nd?
That's the first Tuesday in November.
Thank you.
Mr. Latchney, you had a comment?
yeah, I need to file a petition with the court asking for the special election to be set. I have to file that within 15 days. So I just need a motion from the board authorizing me to file a petition to have November 2nd set as the special election date for the district seat.
I will make that motion, Madam Chair.
I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, any other discussion on this topic, or are we ready to move on? Good? All right, next. County Administrator updates?
No updates tonight.
Okay, that's what we like to hear. Now moving to the public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board members. My name is Sharon Yance. I live at 1917 Fair Oaks Road, Powhatan. And I would like to address the resignation of our board member, Larry Norvig. I was dismayed at this news. Larry's been a passionate advocate for his constituents and a knowledgeable and involved member of the board. In my opinion, he is one of the most qualified members of the board. As a member of the community for many years and attending the board meetings for the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen Larry fight for his beliefs for our citizens in beloved county. It seems he has often been dismissed because of some of the ideas by the board members. He is passionate and outspoken and asks excellent questions on our behalf when necessary. I have a great respect for the board members and their work for Powhatan. Sometimes it seems they are more concerned about Powhatan and regulations than the desires of their constituents that voted for them. I would like to see this board come together and encourage Larry to continue as a board member for his tenure. In my opinion, he does not get the respect and recognition he deserves. I've seen him passed over several times for chairman of the board and vice chairman. He has more experience on the board than the 2 new members that were voted in for this year. The board seems more divided than ever. I was in hopes that they could work together and respect each other's differences as well as their likenesses. This would mean more listening without prejudice against each other or the belief that one knows what is best for the county better than the others. I wanted to take this time to thank Larry for his devoted service to Powhatan and hope he will reconsider the choice to resign from the board. I don't know if this is an option since he's already done that. To him, you've been a devoted advocate for your district and Powhatan. I appreciate your service. Also, having been in attendance to many Board of Supervisors meeting, I feel all the board members have a love of Powhatan and its people. They just have differing views on how to make decisions that are best for the community. And this is funny, not meant as serious, but maybe you should consider hiring a marriage counselor to help you get together and communicate more efficiently. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jamie Timberlake, 1450 Schroeder Road. First, I would like to echo and thank Larry for his service. I agree. I think him stepping down at this point is a disservice to the county in more ways than she described. But the second thing I'd like to say is I'm disappointed that the discussion that just took place happened before this one, because you have some really smart people that could have come and talked to you about the fact as not just the law, but maybe people that are interested. I thought Mr. Williams and Mr. Byerly were going to go down that path for a second there. And I don't want to sound negative about it, but I don't trust the 4 of you to elect my representative for the next year. I mean, we're talking 11 and a half months, 11 months that they're going to represent me in District 2. Y'all were this close, both of you. I heard you heading there. I'd rather you usurp your 45 days and go ahead and tell the judge to appoint somebody. I'd like to hear if that was legal, and I asked Karen to stay to find out whether that was legal. I would much rather have the judge put somebody in charge of me for the next 11 months than the 4 of you in the way that I've seen things happen up there so far, my opinion. But the fact that this conversation didn't happen before the last one almost shows me where the power sits. So.
Thank you, sir.
Sarah Morris, 1101 Dorset Road. Larry was my supervisor. Mr. Williams knows how long I've attended here. I've had problems, but I've brought them up to what the county had made, the plans. My parents spoke here. Some of you know my parents. They spoke, they've now died, over a piece of property that they had owned for years and paid taxes for in this county. Larry met me there. I know he met not so much with you, but some of the predecessors here that served up until last year, and they tried to work things out for me. But he spent time with me. So I want to say thank you to Larry. I have to echo what Mr. Timberlake just said. Mr. Barley, I appreciate you sharing that this is an elected office. I feel like the conversation I just heard was, oh, let's check this off the list. So much for Division 2. I am sorry that we are in this position, but daggone it, my views matter. And I come to this meeting and I see you guys make rules over and over again. Last meeting, I asked that you make less rules. They bind people that love this county, people that have grown up in this county. You can't begin to understand what each of us have to deal with to pay our taxes and to keep things going. And I just have to say that whole discussion about how y'all are going to elect my representative didn't make me feel very well or feel good or however you want to say it. I know you have a hard job. I appreciate what you do, but I really ask that you start listening and get out there and meet some of your citizens. At least Larry met with me and tried to understand what we did, but I just don't know if you guys have a grasp of what your people go through. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. Kitty Osborne, 1071 Dorset Road. Again, Larry Norvig, a great guy. And again, I worked for the Department of Defense for 9 years. I then finished my career with the Department of Veteran Affairs. And you know, why does an elected official resign? What is the elephant in the room? Well, I held positions at all sorts of levels in both the DOD and Department of Veteran Affairs. And I can tell you the times I had to resign or leave positions, I didn't tell the truth because it would have been professional suicide. So that little nice article in the Powhatan today with that Larry gave us, I'm sure there's things that went on amongst you all and on this team. And of course, you know, in the military, which Larry was in, I was in, you try to learn to be a team player, but then you don't give up your standards. So all I'm asking is that the board try to come up. It's not an easy job what you do. We come with their problems. We know how we can best solve our problems, but we need the board to listen to how we're going to solve our own problems in dealing with their land and making Powhatan a great county, which we all want to keep it. But I, in these meetings, often have felt that my constitutional rights are not being supported, aren't being discussed properly. And I know Larry was a big constitutionalist, and again, I'm grateful for everything he's done. I'm grateful for the personal time he spent with our family and our land. And I just wish somehow that the board could have been more cooperative in trying to keep Larry and his expertise and his opinions, because he represents District 2 and he represents very well the mindset of those of us that live in that district. We're conservatives. I feel like the board's becoming like what's going on across the country right now, council culture. There's no freedom of speech. You can't say your piece, or somebody gets upset, or you don't want to hear it, or you just get canceled. And I hope Norvig didn't just get canceled, but it sure looks that way. Again, Powhatan today, again, I never get that paper. You say that it's the tool to communicate to the county and the members of the county, but it's a lousy tool. I never get it. I've got a great little mailbox. I actually have two mailboxes, 1101 and 1071, and I never get the Powhatan today. So if you want to communicate something to me, I have to either come to the meetings or I have to go to the website, but I never get the Powhatan today. So if you think that that's reaching all the members of the county, it's not. Again, what you all do is hard work. I'm with Mrs. Carmack. I doubt you're going to get that many applicants for this job because it is hard work. But I'm with Ms. Yance. Maybe y'all need to get a marriage counselor and decide how y'all can get along. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing there is no one, I will close the public comment period. Now moving on to old business. First up, recommendation of appointments to the Board of Equalization.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Last week, we deferred the appointment of 3 new members to our Board of Equalization and Review. Tonight, we need to appoint these 3 members to join Ms. Mayo and Mr. Blake on the Board of Equalization.
Excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Cox.
Who are the applicants?
Mr. Cox, we have Ms. Venable, Mr. Venable, I'm sorry, Mr. Lipscomb, and Ms. Gannon.
We have 3 openings and 3 applicants. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I requested a deferral until this meeting. I had some people in District 1. We have typically tried to have representation from all districts. I was unsuccessful. The people that were interested in potentially doing it were not able to do it because of conflicts with their job.
Okay. I will go ahead and make a motion then. I move to recommend that the Circuit Court appoint the following: Jean Gannon from District 4, Carl Lipscomb from District 3, and Demetrius Venable from District 5 to the Powhatan County Board of Equalizations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chairman, the next item on the board, last week we recognized that we could provide the board with a quarterly report that had greater clarity on revenues to date. In your packet today, you have an attached quarterly report that is, we think, is a little bit more informative as to revenues. And we need a resolution to, I guess, accept the updated quarterly report. So.
Okay, so I guess we need to move to approve Resolution R 2021-02. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it needs to be amended. It has Mr. Williams' signature, not yours.
Okay. As
So,
amended.
As amended.
Okay. Now do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business, discussion of the.
One more old business.
Oh, one more old business? Okay.
Ms. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the board, please see on page 11 of your packet, a request to appropriate the 3rd quarter of funding for fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. We had a clerical error last week and we wanted to get that fixed for your approval. So we'll happy to answer any questions you may have. So.
I thought that's what
That's what I just
we
did.
just voted on.
That's what I just voted
was
on.
trying
I'm
to-
sorry.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get the quarterly report.
Well, we just approved that.
Okay, we did the quarterly.
We
Oh, we
did-
just did the.
Yeah, we knocked that out. Yeah.
So we're taking care of the 3rd quarter appropriations, and now if we could look at the updated report, the 2nd quarter report on financials as represented.
We got some confusion here.
Yeah.
Mr. Cox, I believe, was talking about the information that was provided last time, the financial data. Mr. Cox?
No. Tonight, we just voted on Resolution 2021-02 appropriating the 3rd quarter. That's done.
Yeah, that's what we just
That's
did.
done.
Do that second.
Yes, I
Yeah,
second it.
that's-
Yeah,
okay.
no,
That's done.
Okay.
But we skipped over the quarterly report.
But that
Okay.
was simply informational. There's no vote on
There's
that.
no vote.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the confusion.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anything else?
We're good.
Okay. So now moving on to the CIP.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could share my screen with you as a. Tonight, Madam Chairman, I'm hopeful that we will be able to do an informative dive into our CIP projects under consideration for the next 10 years. If I've done a good job tonight, you'll leave here tonight with A, a better understanding of the projects, B, a list of questions posed to staff that were either answered directly by staff that's in the room or followed up later by email. It's a starting point for our operational budget and our revenue discussions that we'll be having on February 12th at our next workshop. We have representatives here tonight to hopefully answer any questions that you may have. And with that in mind, I'll proceed to the a PowerPoint summary of the initial projects to be considered.
Madam Chair, one question, please. Mr. Smither, what are we trying to accomplish with this evening? What do you, I'm still a little confused about at the end of the evening, what you would like to have. I'm sorry.
Tonight, I'm hoping we walk out of this room with an understanding of the volume of projects that we're looking at over the next 10 years. Some hot questions that you might want to know more about from our staff, things that intrigue you about the inclusion of the project or not. And so we'll come out of this room tonight with some questions about the CIP in general for 10 years. And we'll get back to you that. And we'll use that as our basis as we move forward next week into our operating budget discussions. We'll have this CIP behind as part of our research completed to date. So,
Madam Chairman, so Mr. Smith, if I understand you correctly, you're looking for quasi approval of 10 years of CIP this evening, where we
That's
haven't, that's what I'm sorry, that's what,
now, tonight's goal is for the board of supervisors to see the projects, to have any question you may have on the projects, and for us to have a chance to get good feedback from you as to what projects are exciting you, which ones you don't like. And
Gotcha.
and if but it's a work in progress between now and March, that there are projects on here tonight that you might be okay with, that you won't be okay with in late February. So, but at least you'll know more about the projects and what they are. And that's our goal tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
Smither, I noticed on the opening page, you're showing amounts in the 10-year CIP, and then we go over to the next page, the resulting debt impact. I don't think we're showing, I've just been through the document, where the project's going to fall within the 10-year continuum, but on the bar chart, we show our fiscal policies, debt as a percent of the expenditures and assessed value by fiscal year. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
So you don't have, what we're saying is you think this is the amount that we're going to be looking at from the general fund, from borrowing, and from grants. That's going to total this amount over the 10-year period. Now, you're not getting into the specificity of where it might fall in the fiscal years in between other than FY22.
Almost, Mr. Williams. We've got a breakdown. In fact, the board packet that was submitted on Friday night actually had a breakdown by each of the 10 years that showed where each project fell. Tonight, we'll talk about it briefly, and I'll illustrate to you what years it will hit on. But that process is soft in that during the operating budget discussions over the next 2 months, you guys might decide as a board that I want to delay one project, I want to accelerate another. And
That's where I was going.
Yeah, that's all part of what we're laying the framework now tonight for what are these projects? And then over the next 2 months, we'll figure out how they fit in.
And when y'all went through this with staff, this was pointed to the strategic plan that we are going to be approving. These projects are in support of those goals in the strategic plan.
Many of them are, yes.
I hope all of them are.
But a few things are,
We'll,
HVAC repairs didn't make it to the strategic
No,
plan.
I'm not talking, what I'm
But
talking.
that's exactly right.
all right, let's dig in.
With that in mind, again, let's start off with the first page. And I did change the order to help the school board. So you'll see me talk about the school section shortly ahead of the order in the package you got from me. This summary page here shows you in total, we're talking about $69.1 million of 10-year funding for our CIP. Of that planned 69 million, again, it's a plan, 53.9 million would come from the general fund, roughly $2 million in grants, and $13 million in debt, primarily on the school project that's designed and late in the CIP, I think 2028 or 29. So in general, you'll see most of the plan as we have it right now and teed up in front of you is and it's all geared towards our long-range goals. We know that the county, and we know as a board of supervisor, the four of you are very concerned about the amount of debt that we had coming into this, over the last couple of years. And so I wanted to basically hit on the fact that if we do the projects that we're talking about, the 69 million in total, and we just borrowed a 13 million that I mentioned, here's where we would end up. So and we have two guidelines we focus on. The board focuses on a 12% guideline of total expenditures to make sure our debt service is within 12%. I think your guideline actually is 15%. I think in general, you believe a 12% guideline is a better number. And this gives you a feel for the fact that by 2023, with these projects in place, that you will be dipping underneath your 12% guideline. And we think that's important in your planning. And it shows you do have some room for debt outside past 2023. Our second test is a gross debt to assessed value test. And you can see by 2021, we'll be below that test and have capacity if you decide some of these projects are better funded with debt than they are with general fund money. That's all part of what we're going to be working on for the next 2 months.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Smither, if we get to 12%, we've gotten to our basic goal. That leaves us no room to borrow. We have to be under 12%
Right.
to have capacity.
You would. And that would, and that'll start, you'll sneak capacity into the equation by 2024. You'll have a little bit of capacity. And by 2027, looks like decent capacity. All right, so let's talk, while tonight we've got Mr. Johns online in case they have any questions, but in general, let's talk about the schools. And I hope this will be a digestible presentation for you. First, we'll talk about schools and we'll kind of wrap up, put a bow on schools. We'll move on to utilities, and then we'll put a bow on utilities and move on. The schools has about 5 projects. The first is the asphalt maintenance project at $212,000 over 10 years. So that's, that's just general maintenance that would be, that they want to schedule out. They also have a land purchase, the goal to get an elementary school somewhere, a site for a new elementary school somewhere in our inventory. They've got a $2.5 million request out there for 2027. Also, they've got significant fleet needs, $1,919,000 over 10 years. So they're all spread basically. In fact, when you see this presentation today, when you see the arrows pointing to the public schools up to the box up top, that means it's generic to the entire county, not just a particular area on the map. School buses. I need to close this screen over here, John. Get in my way.
Mr. Smither, do you want questions as we go along or do you want us to wait?
I think I'll have a general pause in about 2 seconds after every.
So after you get through an area.
One group, right.
Segment, yep.
John, how do I get this screen off again? John, thank you. Magic man work. Okay. And the final project is a Powhatan High School project. It involves a few things. It involves a vestibule in 2022, a security vestibule. It also involves a camera and alert system project in fiscal year 23. It involves mechanical rooftop units in fiscal year 28. And a 2-story addition that will house 300 students in fiscal year 31. And throughout my presentation tonight, when you see a red box like this attached to a project, that is the operating cost that our early estimates are the operating impact that the 10-year financial model is going to take from this particular project and build in. Now, this particular $677,000 of operations is occurring at the end of your 10-year cycle. So we're not seeing a big impact on that, but we will down the road. But that's 300 new students, I think, are anticipated in that new 2-story addition. But it's 10 years away, 9 years away. So here's a summary of the projects. Mr. Cox, for example, and on the next page I got, here's a total of $27,099,000 for in cost, $13,949, a little over half and from the general fund and a little less than half from debt. Of those projects, $1,905,000 will be in fiscal year 22. And with that, and there's a good stopping point to talk about the school projects in general. And if you'd like to see anything more about a particular project, I can drill down on it and get you additional detail describing the schools project. If we have a question that, or Mr. Johns can handle it for us. But we have the ability all through this presentation to get additional data if the questions go that direction. So.
Ms. Smither, the school bus purchases, is that a change from leasing?
Yes, sir. At this point in time, we've got cash, using general fund cash to take care of all school board purchases for school buses. That is not what we've been doing in.
Could we go back, go back to where
Mhm.
I can read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So school buses over time are 8 million, so we have enough cash now for 2022 to purchase.
A slice of that. But we won't do all 8 million in 2022. We'll do just what he needs for the first year. And then we'll do a second year, and then we'll do a third year.
Okay, so we're phasing in we'll have purchases and leases in 2022?
No, right now, we're doing everything per this first run. We're doing everything on the school bus purchases with general fund money, no debt. But we're not doing it all in 1 year. This is a 10-year.
No, I
Yeah.
understand this is
So
10 years,
we-
okay? But we plan to purchase all school buses.
We do.
What's the value to that?
The only, I think there's some value to leasing. I think it's two things. The only thing we would want as a board to use, this is a primary tool right now to reduce our debt levels, to generate capacity. So our 12% guideline and a 3%
So
guideline.
by purchasing it, we are
Right.
reducing our debt level. The
right.
leases are against our debt.
Right.
Yes.
Primarily, I don't have a problem with leasing because I do think it spreads the cost of the asset out. But in this case, it is attacking our debt policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on the school projects as presented? If not, we can go to public utilities. Robert and Ramona Carter here with us today, and online we got Mr. Mellis, and it's between the two of them, we should be able to answer any questions. But the first project is now part of this presentation. When you see a green line across the screen, that's a project that's fiscal year 22. And we're starting now with smart water technology. That's addressing all of our meter needs throughout we currently have existing meters in their place. This will make them readable from remote locations as opposed to site visit. It allows us to take our inventory that are out there in the streets, already in our customers' homes, and convert them over to a new technology. And we will then ask new connections to pay for their own meters, the new updated high-tech meters. But this will get our inventory up, what we got in place in the ground, updated with the new technology. It's a $400,000 purchase in fiscal year 22. The next item is the Fighting Creek wastewater treatment drainage and site improvements. That's really, Ramona, I think we're talking about just the access road and just improvements to the road back to the wastewater treatment plant are long overdue. That was $100,000, and that also was fiscal year 22. Mr. Williams, you'll be interested in this. This is a 275-foot extension of a water line out there towards the high school, which will create a loop to better address the needs of the flushing that goes on out there where line terminates near the high school. So this 275-foot extension or loop will improve on the flushing that's going on in that neighborhood.
Do you want me to wait till you finish the page, or do you want me?
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, if you bring it on. So
Well, you're absolutely right. I am very much interested in that and have been for some time, like all of us. I didn't know about this, so I'm excited. So can you briefly explain to me how this is going to work?
no, sir, I cannot, but Ms. Carter can do a much better job.
I'm sure she can. But no, I'm excited. I also saw the chloramine booster.
Good evening. So this line
welcome.
is, thank you. This is at the high school, and it's going to, from where we have a termination point right now, it's going to extend the line and connect it back in to the water line on
I'm sorry, Ms.
Batterson
Carter,
Road.
is that on?
Is it on?
It's a red.
Okay. Is it on?
I think
Yeah,
it is on.
Yeah, it's on. Can you hear me?
You're
now?
just going to have to lean into it
Okay.
Thank you.
or bend it down or whatever.
So this is at the high school where the line terminates. We're connecting it at that point, and we're looping it back to the water line that's on Batterson Road, so that the customers, like the elementary school that's further down that road, instead of there being an end point where the water just sits and the quality goes down, whenever, every time that the elementary school uses water, it'll pull that water through back instead of having a termination point. So, and the termination points is where we have to flush all the water to get quality, so.
So when I go over there on Carter Gallier off of Church Road, I won't be seeing the flushing like I normally see.
You shouldn't.
Well, that's good
Not
news.
as
Thank
much.
you. Any estimate in terms of gallons per day we'll save?
That's really difficult to say. We don't know at this point, so.
But we should have some idea, because if we're going to expend X number of dollars, we ought to be able to understand how that translates into gallons per day that we're paying for from Chesterfield.
But it's based on, the reduction in the flushing is based on the demand further down the line. So if the elementary school is using a lot of water, it will keep the quality up in the line. But if they're not, we'll still have to flush.
I understand, but if you could, I'm intrigued, with the idea of, just how much, we might be able to save, because I'm assuming the elementary school is a pretty good user of water.
We can probably run some models just to
Yeah,
guesstimates to see.
Thank you.
Ms. Carr, you might want to hang there just in case we have another question. So hang with us a second. I'm sorry?
Since we're talking about loops in that area, and we were talking about improvements fighting creek a minute ago, how does the east end waste disposal, which is right in the middle of all of that, is it not? Does that have any, doing these things, does it have any value to what we're going to have to spend with our new waste disposal site? We got to give those people water. We've got to get pavement in there.
Are you talking about the new convenience center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you said, I thought waste.
Well, convenience center, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
I was with you. Yeah, I'm not sure that, so you're thinking that the extra flow-
I'm looking at this little bitty map and I really can't tell you. I've just,
Yeah.
I wouldn't estimate that the convenience center would be a significant user of water. Am I correct, Ms. Carter?
No, it is not. And
Okay.
it's actually not in the same location
Okay.
that we're.
so it has no
we're
impact.
looking
No
Okay,
impact.
thank you.
Thank you. In addition to that project, we've got $95,000 in fiscal year 22 for SCADA equipment for our water plant. It's 4 different locations. Actually, this is just one location. It's $95,000 improvement in our SCADA, which we have a nice setup now for monitoring systems remotely, and this will improve on that. In addition to that, at 4 wastewater treatment plants, 4 sewer pump stations, we'll have additional SCADA of equipment that will also, for 65,000 that we have targeted for fiscal year 22.
Madam Chair, Mr. Smithers, SCADA, is that the manufacturer?
That is, I don't think so. I think
I don't know the
Yeah, I don't-
acronym.
when you go out to treatment plant and you see the gadgets on the wall that measure flow and traffic and things they can use remotely to see how the plant's performing. That's the SCADA equipment there. And I'm not sure what SCADA stands for.
I don't.
First time I
Johnny
saw it, I
might
thought it
know.
was scuba.
It's
This is
like a
Johnny Mellis. Like,
analysis. Oh, go ahead.
SCADA is actually stands for, it's an acronym for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition.
Nice.
Cool. So it's software.
Thank
It's
you
a
very
software.
much.
Thanks, Johnny.
In addition to the, we also have some wastewater treatment plant upgrades, a significant number, $700,000 that we have got scheduled for fiscal year 25. That might slide back a year as we, depending on customer usage, but right now we're thinking 25. It could be fiscal year 26. A small storage building at the wastewater treatment plant for $30,000, fiscal year 26. And that's my series of project for water, for water and public utilities, water, sewer and public utilities. Any questions you may have that we haven't covered, be glad to help you with.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
FY 25, $700,000. That is in FY 25 because we believe we will run out of capacity. Is that what that's about?
Yeah, it's based on the demand, the flow.
okay.
and- yeah.
So we will be at max and we got to do something.
Right.
Everything else is FY 22. Is a reason why we're doing all of them in 22? Is there a necessity for doing them in 22? I mean, they're all breaking at the same time.
There's a couple answers to that question. Obviously, when we're talking about the smart water technology, we've got to bite the bullet at some point if we're ever going there, because next year we'll have 20 more meters in the ground. The next, so at some point we draw a line in the sand. But items like the Fighting Creek wastewater treatment plant, whether we improve the access to that road in fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 23, there's no magic to that particular project. So it's we have some flexibility there. So.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Williams, here's our list of, I wanted to show you, because you just mentioned the chloramine booster station. During the process, when we went through departments and kind of reviewed, we ended up with these projects totaling $1,430,000, but you'll notice that the ones on zero we did not recommend to advance to this level. And part of that was the chloramine booster station. I think there was some thought that we might not be getting a bang for our buck, but with that amount. So we've got that in as zero right now. So.
The reason I bring it up, and I've been bringing it up now for a number of years, is because of the concern that we have with the subsidy of public utilities on Road 60. And every one of the board members is committed to bringing that subsidy down. So I get excited when I hear about the loop tonight. I would get excited if I knew that the chloramine booster, something that would preserve the integrity of the water in the system longer so that we don't have to do the flushing. If I could quantify, the savings, how many years it would take in savings to pay for such a booster. I know we have them in other localities. We got them over in Goochland. So I'm going to continue to ask the question, is this one of the things that we should be considering to lower cost on Road 60? And I will defer to my experts, my department head, and you, Mr. Smith.
I think originally Ms. Carter's mentioned $140,000 budget for this particular project. And as we worked through, is that the right number, Ramona, Ms. Carter?
No, it's more like 400 or 500,000.
Okay.
Ms. Carter,
And
I was going to say, I thought you discussed some time back that we weren't going to save any money. So I thought this was kind of like we were moving this off the, yeah.
we actually, based on what we currently flush and and we actually went out to Goochland because they
Correct.
put in one. And we figured that to get any payoff for the investment, the capital investment was going to take 15+ years.
All right, that's a piece of information I didn't have.
Yes, she
So
had mentioned that.
that's a pretty important piece of information for the whole board to have.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Please say that again.
It takes 15 years because I've been asking this question forever.
For 15
How
years.
many years does it take of savings to pay for the booster?
Yeah.
So tonight I find out from the chairman, it's 15 years.
Yeah. I believe she mentioned this a few meetings. I could be wrong, but I think,
Could have been a meeting that I'm, one
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
I
two
think she
I
did
missed.
say that. And that's why I'm like, all right, move off the chloramine booster. Next. Yeah.
then why do we have it in the packet?
I think maybe to
It's got a
please you.
zero next to it.
That's probably the reason. Probably the reason.
It's a good indicator.
Yeah, just go.
Might be a
We're
sign.
serious about this, aren't we?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Ms. Smither. We have nothing in the village. We have a sewer system up there. Y'all are happy with it. We don't have to spend any money on it. It's just fine for the next 10 years.
that Fighting Creek, that's Fighting Creek. Yeah,
That's
we don't
Fighting
have
Creek.
water there. We just have sewer.
Right.
there, Yeah. And that's the 700,000 that we were talking about in
be for the-
fiscal years 25. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on.
We have, the next section is Parks and Rec. And we have with us Mary Ann Woodall and not Ms. Carter, between the two of them, if I can't answer the question, they'll be, I divided their projects into two sections, the larger projects and the smaller. And also, we've got some maps later on that even further define this. So almost, as part of this, we'll hurry through and get to the other maps. I think they're a little bit more explanatory, but $630,000 for athletic, ADA improvements at our athletic fields. That includes sidewalks, restroom improvements, and improves concession stand access for ADA, and $630,000 over 10 years. It ends up being a roughly average of $63,000 a year for those projects. Also, the trail master plan, we've got approximately $250,000 in grant money identified for the construction, and an extra $315,000 in general fund money over a 2-year period to go to some trail improvements in the county. And I know that's part of our strategic plan and discussions. In general, athletic field lighting is deficient, especially at the Pocahontas Landmark Center. You know, we get some safety concerns there that we want to make sure we address as soon as possible. So we've got a $500,000 number in on those projects. Parking improvements we'll talk about that a little bit later on a different map. It's a $400,000 item for the Pocahontas Landmark Center parking, and I'll show you more about that location shortly. Again, furniture, equipment, and furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That's just taking care of everything in our inventory, whether it's backstops or tracks or anything that we need equipment for. Again, it's over a 10-year period, $630,000, but it's things that is taking care of our shop in Parks and Rec, furnitures and fixture wise. A softball complex concession facility. I'm going to show you where that's going to be in a couple of seconds. It's $315,000 in fiscal year 22. And the big piece of our biggest project outside of the new high school, not the new high school, but the high school project, is a Fighting Creek Park expansion, $6.9 million that we have scheduled for fiscal year 25, with an operating impact of $62,000. We'll talk about that in greater detail as the location in a couple of seconds. So here's a summary of the large projects here. I think if you don't mind, if I move to the better maps and that are coming, it'll be better for your discussion about the actual projects themselves. Unless you want to talk about I'm not talking anymore about the trail, the master plan construction of the trails and the ADA improvements. So if you got any questions about the ADA or the trail master plan, now's a great time. And even the furniture and fixtures, but we'll touch everything else in a couple of minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a question on the trail master plan. What is that? I mean, I know what you're saying with your grant, the grant that's coming in. What are we getting as a trail master plan? What are we getting? What's the taxpayers getting there?
Ms. Carter, tell me a little bit more, or Ms. Woodall, either way you want to handle it, as far as the end game, the master plan and what the grant's covering, it would be very helpful to see where we'll end up. It's a high priority item in our comprehensive, just question is, do we know where they need to be?
In the master plan. So
Right.
part of this, the initial funding was to develop a plan for where we could expand the trails to kind of a overall county for connectivity. And then the subsequent years, it's funding to actually build them. And so the grant that we were looking at is the land conservation grant. And it has a minimum of $250,000 award. So we were trying to build it around getting that to maximize that money to have shovel-ready projects where we could get that grant money. And to get those projects designed, we have to have the money to do that and to apply for the grant with the design work. Because the grant, they won't give you the grant money if you don't have shovel-ready projects.
And I
And
think,
then
And
Ms.
part of
Carter,
that, if we're looking at the expansion of the trails to get you all the way from Fighting Creek Park over to the new middle school. And then it would actually then bring you back up through the community. So it would help expand those trails.
so the initial study would be $65,000 in the first year and $500,000 of improvements in fiscal year 23. That would be part grant funded, part county funded.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're going to take the trails that exist. We're going to spend money to have a consultant tell us how we construct these trails, where we're going to take them to. You're applying for a grant, $250,000, leaves $315,000 that we're going to pay to put these trails wherever.
The grant is a matching grant. That's why we did it
Okay.
that way.
Okay. Thank you. That's for that question. I've got another one if you
Okay,
don't
thank you.
mind.
Sure.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
The approved athletic field lighting that you mentioned, Mr. Smithers, that was going to be at Powhatan Landmark Center, 500,000.
Yes, sir.
What fields are we lighting up there? There's a rectangular field, there's a girls softball field, and there's a baseball diamond.
Actually, the baseball field and it's a football, soccer, lacrosse field, so it's multi-purpose. They've gotten in pretty bad shape to the point of electrical fires and almost the risk of someone getting electrocuted. And it's pretty bad. Even the ground, the wires are exposed, the box that the citizens actually have to reach their hands into to cut the lights on. We don't have staff out there when they're out there to actually cut the lights on. So it's citizens that are having to do that. So if we could get that replaced and get it under the Musco system, that would be our last remaining area that isn't on Musco, where I can actually control it via the computer, my phone. It would not require citizens to then cut lights on that actually forget and leave them on overnight, and they stay on costing, the county more money. I would actually be able to control that, have them cut off at a certain time and cut on at a certain time.
And I just want to add that this is to replace them with LED lights, which are more energy efficient. So our power consumption our power bill should go down out there.
How long does it take us to save the 500,000 for our power bill?
A long time.
Mr. Bobby.
Good question.
But when that field the rectangular field you're talking about, you're just going to get rid of those lights, kind of like we've done with the other fields around here, bring these Musco lights in.
Yes, sir.
You're going to do the same thing at the baseball diamond there,
Yes.
correct?
As well as the field. Rectangular
And what used to be the girls' middle school field, no lights exist there today.
Right.
So you're not planning on putting lights in there?
That area is considered for future parking. That little softball field, that's one of the areas that we're looking at to consider for future parking. That school, with everything that we're going to have planned there, is going to need more parking. Right now, when there's any type of a football event, they're parked all the way down Route 60. If anybody has ever gone to a PYAA football event or anything there.
That parking, that's another thing that's $400,000, right? So do we have a map or any way we
Sure.
can show where the parking facility actually, where you guys are talking about putting that?
Here's the map of the additional parking at the Powhatan Landmark Center. You'll see the arrow. That is about the spot where your improvements or parking improvements.
That's
are going.
left field.
Left field.
Right, well, so it would literally be where that softball sits.
Okay.
And then the problem with that school is that we have to be careful with the bus loop. The bus loop that they use on the backside of that school to get you to Pocahontas Elementary, we
Yeah.
cannot use that for parking of cars during at any time that's going to impact the elementary school. So this would allow parking to come through from the main parking lot along the side of the gymnasium and get to that for parking without having to pull through the bus loop on the other side of the building.
Where are all those cars parking right now?
Well, right now, we're not open right now.
I guess my point would be, are we going to grow that much in 10 years that we need that much parking?
We hope that that becomes one of our next big parks, complexes. Other than Fighting Creek Park, we have so much that we can do there with the gymnasium, the fields. That would be our next big area.
As we look at this, how would things change if we tore down the landmark center that's unused?
It wouldn't change this parking at all because we're not considering those parts of the building for our use at all.
No, if we tear down the building,
It's on the
it
other
becomes
side.
flat.
It's not really the
What,
same.
you know, last number I saw said $7 million to renovate, okay? And 300,000 to tear it down. So, well, we haven't made a decision on, I haven't talked about that, but that's a fair amount of space that potentially would be available for something. Just,
Any other questions on this?
I have, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
Mr.
go
Cox.
ahead.
I just want to make a couple points clear that everybody understands. All of these projects, from the way I understand this, we're talking about paying cash for all of these things. Pay as we go.
Today, we're talking about this.
That's what we're talking about. And this 10-year CIP could change in 6 months. We could alter it. This is where we think we're going now, 10 years out, and our plan for 10 years. But a year from now or 2 years from now, this could change dramatically. But it gives us a good idea for today of where we are. And I think it's a huge thing. Mr. Cox brought it up with the buses. There are opportunities where it's beneficial to finance. But with our debt ratio that we have, we're not in a position to borrow any money.
It's been one of our goals is to get that under our guidelines.
In 2024, I think, is when that happens.
Start getting.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, the softball complex concession facility, our perennial punching bag, down from $500,000. I think, I'm just looking at the number. I'm sorry, you can come up with all kinds of designs, you can come up with all kinds of ways to look at it, but $315,000 for concession bathroom is going to be a very, very hard sell for me.
And part of that cost is because we have to put in a pump station to get that to the sewer, which is behind the administration building.
But to justify this, to put in a pump station, okay? Look, Scott, I understand you've looked at it and y'all have evaluated, but you have found ways to spend an enormous amount of money, okay? So.
We actually based this on a similar sized project that Henrico has just completed.
As well as the new middle school bathroom restroom facility,
ahead,
as
go
well as the new bathroom restroom facility that's at the brand new middle school. And that's without an actual kitchen. They can't cook anything at that new middle school concession stand. All it is simply shelves with a refrigerator and restrooms. And that actually cost, if I'm not mistaken, more than this. And it did not include the pump station. There was already water and everything there.
So we could build a house for $315,000 with a kitchen, plenty of room. I'm sorry,
It's-
that's
That's the going rate.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Ms. Smith.
It is what it is.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Smither, do you want us to come forward and do like Bill just did, on the concession stand to opine and give you opinions on some of these? Because there's some of these are going to require further vetting from me. Batting cages, the dog park, because I'm going to need more information about the expenditure of tax dollars for these things. What exactly is it? How it, ranks in priority with other projects, but I don't know if you want to do that now or.
Well, Mr. Williams, items like Mr. Cox just mentioned, you expressed a concern with the 315 price of that turn. And that's the type of feedback I'd love to get out of you guys tonight. If you're pro, you really feel like we need a concession stand there, let us know. If you're worried about the price, that's kind of, we want to get the goal of tonight. Projects that are exciting you, projects that are scaring you. It sounds like the 315 is scaring a few board members.
Well, I'm going to add to the list. I'll go ahead and put in the dog park, throw that one in because we've had a discussion on that recently.
That one's coming on the next list.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's,
I'm ahead of you. Go ahead.
no, it's why we're here doing it. Let's go back to, we've just finished a large projects, I think. That's a smaller one. So okay, we got through the larger projects. And we'll talk about Fighting Creek shortly on a different map on the expansion number. Now we go into smaller projects. First one to talk about, and then members of the board, I think this is this is our athletic fields, irrigation, seeding. I think this is something we probably will move to the operating budget out of the capital budget. It's at roughly $13,000 a year. It feels more like maintenance to me than it does a CIP item. But,
I would agree, yeah.
in addition to that, we've got the Fighting Creek Park additional baths, and we'll talk about those shortly on another map. You'll see where we plan on locating some baths there at $300,000 in fiscal year 23. We'll talk more about that when I get to that map in a couple minutes. The trail renovations and improvements of $50,000. That is actually focused on existing trails and just some maintenance and care on those trails right now, as opposed to new trails. That's kind of rehab money for the existing trails in place. The Turner Sports Complex parking expansion, and we get back to our maps, we'll show you where we plan on showing you a $200,000 parking expansion at Turner Sports. At Fighting Creek Park, the land expansion, we'll talk more about that, where we thinking it makes sense to put a addition onto that Fighting Creek Park. And a $263,000 village complex restroom. We'll talk about that when we get to that map. Now we get to the dog park at $50,000 at fiscal year 22. I think I'll go back to that if you don't mind. That is a small outdoor park over near the animal control. You can see generically the shape on the screen now is it's outdoor two I wouldn't call it two gates, but two facilities where the dogs are in one half during one season, and they wear that out, and they go to the other half and wear that out. But it's a $50,000 project for your consideration. Adding cages is roughly $10,000 per cage. Three cages in fiscal year 22 at to be determined locations. That wraps up the smaller projects on the Parks and Rec budget. The summary, just to kind of give you a feel for what we just looked at. We just looked at $11 million over 10 years, most of which is being paid for with general fund money, $10.9 million. Small piece of it, $250,000 is paid for in grants. That fiscal year 22 impact of these projects would be $1,205,000. So that kind of gives you a feel for the magnitude and the focus of this CIP on Parks and Rec. We kind of got some feedback from the board as to the strategic plan, and is that we do want to spend some focus on Parks and Recs in general, and this is our first bite at showing you various alternatives. You'll see some items that we did scratch up top. In general, $11,159,000 came to you for presentation. And now the maps, let's first talk about the Fighting Creek Park. The land that we're talking about, what we think would be ideal for expansion, is just beside the soccer fields, as you see on this map. How many acres is there? 31, okay. In addition to that, so, once they had the land in fiscal year 24, the following year, we would start construction on the expansion, a $6.9 million project. This is a project that if you wanted to do debt on, has enough size to it, it makes sense that you could borrow money for $6.9 million. But that's right now we're showing paying cash for that, $62,000 of operating cost on that expansion. The additional bathrooms we talked about earlier, $300,000 in fiscal year 23. You'll see them located over here beside the parking lot. It's I'm not sure what's there right now. But
Near the playground.
near the playground, okay. We also have some trail renovation projects. We talked the $50,000 of rehab on our existing project, on our existing trails and the dog park. So that's at Fighting Creek Complex. As we slide over to the other three parks, our facilities, we've got the initial at Pocahontas Landmark Center, the parking lot improvements in left field of that ballpark, right beside the bus turning lane. The Turner Sports, this is the expanded parking, and you'll see the existing gray area here where the existing lot is, that is paved at this point. The new $200,000 will add additional parking directly adjacent to that existing parking. The complex and the restroom concession area that's being proposed fiscal year 22, you'll see where it's located, and the green arrow is pointing to that little triangle right there, our V.
Can I speak to that, Ned?
Yes, please.
Just a minute, I'm so sorry. The reason why we're looking at that, I see you kind of looking like, why are you thinking that area there? It looks like Mr. Williams might have been questioning that. We would like to move it from where it is now behind that Turner field. It's not centrally located there, so if we were to actually move it to that new area, it could actually service the lacrosse field as well and be more centrally located with bathrooms and a concession that could accommodate that entire complex, meaning the softball fields as well as the rectangular field where lacrosse is held.
Thank you. And the final piece of this is the village complex, the restroom improvements, where they would be located is directly behind the building we're in right now. You'll see it up here behind the backstop of that little small baseball field. I guess it's not a small field, it's a pretty decent sized baseball field. In total, excuse me, we're not ready for public works. So that is a $11.1 million 10-year CIP. And we know it's going to generate some questions. So any way you want to ask the questions now, if you want to put them, we'll be glad to get back to you in writing. Either way, how you want to handle your time tonight is up to you, but we've got some details.
I have some questions tonight.
Fantastic, fantastic.
We had this wonderful study. And we're spending a lot of money. And we ain't building any trails. We got a study, we're going to apply for grant. We're not doing what the citizens told us they wanted us to do. We have not prioritized that. I'm not suggesting that these are not good projects, but we are not prioritizing what we asked the citizens. The citizens told us, and we're not getting it done. It is down the line. So that.
Well, Ms. Cox, we have got $500,000 improvements. I'm not sure as far as linear feet, 500,000 will get us how much linear feet?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I think, but at the time we put the 500,000 out, we thought we were buying a nice chunk of a linear feet for.
But,
yeah.
okay, we are still spending a small percentage of all of this money on what the citizens tell us they want the most. I would like to see something that has more equity in terms of, and I don't know what the answer is. That continues to worry me.
Okay.
Dog park, based on actions most willing to fund, was number 13. Okay, your study. Dog park to me is a no starter.
Okay.
Improved restroom facilities at the park. Everybody wants better restrooms. That's number 6 on willing to spend. Okay, and so we're they're expensive. I get it. Okay, but that's once again down the list of what the citizens have said they were willing to spend money on. The batting cages does not appear, near as I can figure it, anywhere in any of this.
Some of the projects are related directly to that. Some of them are maintenance projects that we have to.
No,
we
but
just have to
batting
evaluate,
cages,
yeah.
batting cages are not in any of your prioritized.
Right, those are a maintenance issue for.
Well, we're not if you're building new ones.
Right, but
We have to maintain what we have.
well, we have to maintain what we have, but we also know that it's being used a lot and we need additional ones. And it wasn't part of the survey. That wasn't. So we know that we're using the
Okay.
batting cages in there. We need additional ones to serve the citizens.
Ms.
So
Carter,
that's,
understand that the whole point of this is continuing to take all of these different projects, all of which have merit, and go back and say, look, the citizens told us they want trails, okay? And we're finding ways, it's 30,000 here and 50,000 there, money that I think, I'm not saying we shouldn't do these projects. I don't know enough to tell you that, but I'm not seeing the focus that your study suggested we should have. That's all. And I'd like to have a better focus, and whatever that means. Thank you.
Madam Chair, let me take a stab at this. Ramon. So what you're telling us is with these projects, part of these projects are for ongoing maintenance for what we already have in place to service
Yes, sir.
our population.
Yes, sir. That are already continually used every day.
Okay. And then you've got the other half over here, which represents new things, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go back to, if I went back and I did the percents, where the dollars are going, to maintain what I've got. I know I've got to do that because people are still using the park and they expect to maintain a certain level of service. So if I look at that dollar amount for maintenance, which I guess you would look at as a requirement. And then I look at the money that's over here for the new projects. Now we start getting to Bill's thing. Within the money for the new projects, is there any prioritization in terms of how we spend that money for the new stuff? And is it tied to the park study that we accomplished just recently? So is that a fair representation?
Yeah, if you remember from the master plan, when they were addressing the CIP, they said there was 3 buckets.
Yep.
There was like the
Short-term.
sustainable, and then the expansion, and the visionary projects. So we took that report and we brought it to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. And we went through these projects because that was kind of a guideline. The master plan is a guideline. And we took the knowledge from that group in the community to try to apply their experience to where they thought we should place the projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Cox. One of the things that came out loud and clear in that survey, people want these trails. So if there's a way that we can prioritize, not, from the maintenance that we have to, but the new projects, and look at how we can feed what people have told us that we want, I think that's probably a good idea. I don't want to lose total focus, with, other things that, may be ancillary. It might not be the top one, but maybe in the top 5 or something like that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think one thing that may be a challenge with the trails, there's one thing you need with trails, and that's land. We only have so much land, so we can only put so many trails in. So it's very easy to be like, we want trails, we want trails. But if you have 20 acres, you only can loop and do so much. I mean, am I correct? Is that a challenge?
That's exactly.
Very much.
Okay.
So part of that additional land that we're looking at purchasing on the left side of the soccer fields, part of that was to could expand trails as well, to then get you further around and include more trails
Correct.
as well.
Yeah, you're probably tapped out. I mean, I've walked the trails pretty frequently there. You're probably fairly tapped out with how many more trails you can put in that area
Unless
that
we
we
purchase
have.
more land.
Unless we purchase more land.
Madam Chair, let me follow up with what you said. Then that amount of money that we have put aside that we think is going to cost us for that additional parcel, that's in the CIP?
The cost for the,
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, so we know it cost,
Mhm.
and it's in the CIP. So that's a decision. And I think you've got it in there.
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Madam Chair, I understand the limitations on the land we own. But I think if we're going to have an interesting trail and park system, we're going to have to move beyond the perimeter of what we own and begin to look at trails and easements in a different way. Okay, that's the only way, I agree with you 100%, but that's the only way we're going to get any linear improvement of any significance, rather than going round and round and round a football field.
The citizens do very
Yeah.
well.
Okay, moving on.
We good? Public Works. So thank you, Mary Ann and Mona, you can't get away from us. Hang about this. In general, we got some project HVAC system. Ms. Carter has scheduled out a series of timing and system updates. She knows about when, age of the system. She's got over 10 years, $1 million of HVAC system improvements for county facilities and grounds. This is general maintenance. It's painting, it's striping parking lots, some asphalt repairs. It's stuff that just keeps things floating over a 10-year period. And we've got a $415,000 numbers in there over that time, overall fiscal year. Spread evenly over not quite evenly, but overall 10 years. She's got a schedule of roof replacements as based on the age of the roof and timing of $715,000. Conversion of our existing light system over time, over multiple fiscal years to fluorescent will be at roughly $165,000 as our estimate. Some HVAC improvements at the library. Man Road extension, $800,000. That's a 2-year project from fiscal year 27. That will take gravel road and extend it back to the animal and wastewater treatment plant. I'm not sure how many miles that is, but it's a $800,000 project. I can click here and find out more details on that. 2,000 linear feet on that pavement. Old Plantation Road, again, is a gravel road that we use back there, I guess where Man terminates. And we use that Old Plantation Road. It was $200,000 if we want to address the gravel there and turn that into a more usable road. And again, let me see, let me go back to that and tell you how long a distance that was, if I got that information. Half a mile, yeah. Actually, a little longer than the project on Man. And the final piece is in courthouse lighting and just general aesthetics in the village area. The light posts, as you see here, would be, we've got $30,000 in for that for next fiscal year. Yeah, fiscal year 22, with a $5,000 operating cost going with it. And final, I'm not sure final on this, but village building generator, electrical upgrades. We need to make sure that building is protected from power, and we do have a $250,000 request in for fiscal year 22, and $1,000 of annual maintenance going forward. So here's a summary of the project we just ran through with the general public works projects. Glad to give you any details on those. It kind of self-explanatory with the exception of Man Road and probably Old Plantation Road. Do total 3.6 million, all the projects together, and we of that 3.6 million, 1.060 million would be scheduled in fiscal year 22.
Any questions?
Couple questions. Go ahead.
No, go.
The operating costs, so we're going to upgrade our courthouse village lighting street signs. It's going to cost us $30,000 and it's going to cost us $5,000 a year to run it. Well, that's a great train.
Well,
I mean,
you're trying to, what's the basis?
I mean, I guess the question is, are we making progress?
Well, again, we're trying to develop the marketing and a desire to get people into the village. And so the more that we can draw people down into their village, the better we are. And the cost we think to run the power and provide extra electricity needed to service these lights, I guess some maintenance and possibly, let's see if you've got any paint in there, but generally we're thinking $5,000 a year to maintain the aesthetics of those lights.
Second reaction to this is I'm very pleased to see that you're building in real maintenance, okay, too often we have found ways to defer that, but to actually have maintenance as a line item where we know we need to do these things. So that's, I know nothing about the numbers, but the process is spot on. The old Plantation Road, who are we? We are leasing a building or allowing a building to be built next to the our dog kennels there. Who's that? Is that VDOT?
I don't know who that is, Mr. Cox.
Virginia
Thank
Power.
thank you, Ms. Carr. Ms. Carter.
It's the Department of Forestry for
Department of
storage of their
Forestry.
firefighting equipment.
Well, they got plenty of gravel. I was hoping it was VDOT. We get them to pave it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Byron, do you have questions?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I must have question written on my forehead. You know, as I look at this in a half a mile of Old Plantation Road is $200,000. And a parking lot's $400,000. I don't, I think the effort is here and I understand it, that, you know, what we're trying to do, and this is the initial beginning part of that in how we want to go forward. And to try and come up with a starting place, which is, I think, what we're at. We're at the starting place with this. But when I see a half a mile road, we're going to pay $200,000 for, and then there's a parking lot, we're going to pay $400,000 for, it just kind of makes me say, I'm not, maybe there's a hidden septic tank there or something that we need to remove that we don't know anything about or what it is, but
No, part of it is that on Old Plantation Road, the base is already there. So they've already put the sub base and made
it's
sure that
packed very hard.
on the parking lot, you have to take it down to suitable soil and then you have to build all that back up again. It's not just, you know, a layer of asphalt, it's all the material underneath the gravel and base.
Yeah, I had a used
And
car lot at
striping,
one
and-
time in this county. It has a pretty good patch of asphalt on it. I'm familiar with the process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you good?
Yes.
Okay.
On administration, as far as, we've got two projects to talk about. One is just admin vehicles, the fleet of vehicles that you see serving all of our county operations. $1.2 million over 10 years. That's a schedule that we could look at on that. And then, and I felt like any CIP project that we talked about in today's world right now needs to have a slot for broadband. And so in addition to what you saw a month ago in your packages, I've since added this $2 million at $500,000 per year for 4 years. I have no idea ultimately how we'll strategize to get broadband improvements. But right now you've got a placeholder in the CIP numbers here for $2 million over 4 years until we figure out the best strategy there. That takes care of the administration projects. And if we could go on to public, excuse me, I shouldn't jump too quick because you might have a question on these two projects. Public safety, we've got some public safety staff online and in the building with us tonight. We've got significant portion of the budget in public safety is for fire and rescue apparatus. And you all know how expensive the equipment we use in our fire and rescue efforts is. And we do a great job in that area with Phil and his team and his volunteers. But if you see it as a 10-year number, it jumps out at you at $10.6 million. And we've got schedules for that number, you know, if you'd like to see them. The sheriff's vehicles, we've talked about those recently. We try to do 5 vehicles per year. With inflation, we've got an estimated $2.2 million over 10 years, an average of $228,000 per year. Little radar signs that we've had some requests recently for are $4,000 a piece. We could buy 5 of them for $20,000 in fiscal year 22 and use them strategically, you know, around neighborhoods throughout the county as far as speeding is concerned. The blinking radar signs, I'll click, you've all seen them. I think we got, yeah. I'm not sure that's the exact picture. Maybe it is. Sheriff, does that look like, thank you very much. And And we've got LMR radios, the portable radios. We've already borrowed the money for that. So in your package, I showed that as grants, but because I didn't want to double count the debt, but we've already borrowed the money it's sitting in, but that money will be spent. Tom Nolan's here today, on Zoom if we need any questions for Tom. And a backup generator for the EOC Center is $75,000. We've got that set up for fiscal year 22. Fire station number 6, a new location, possible land purchase in fiscal year 23. We've got a $250,000 placeholder for that acquisition, wherever it might be.
Where are you considering for that?
I'd have to be getting Chief Warner to talk to you about that as far as if any research has been done as far as location to date. Chief, if you got any ideas on that. So.
That's a really complicated question. And we're going to have to, when we looked at this, we're looking at, right now, we're looking at 4 areas of the county that we do it. One would be your district, because it's probably mostly underserved by ISO, the Insurance Services Organization. Then but we could also look at it as for need in the middle of the county, which is the Red Lane Road area, the 288 Huguenot Trail area, and then south with the 4th area could possibly be based on growth is the area towards Genito and Dorset. So those are the 4 areas that we're looking at as we kind of fine tune that and really decide what our highest need is. Volume of calls, servicing people by insurance, whichever we decide.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. We have a variety of trailers that we house that serve a variety of needs, whether it's generators or mobile electrical signs, but whatever we want to build a small carport, for the shelter of those trailers. In fiscal year 22, it's a $20,000 acquisition. The Station 1 improvements, fiscal year 22 and 23, we have in here at $2.9 million. That's additional living quarters, office space, training space, kitchen, just basically showers. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few things that are in there, Chief, but it goes with $30,000 a year and operating costs to go with that. It is a $2.9 million number. We also have some handling equipment software for 911. Others $271,000. 181,000 of it is coming from grants. So at least 90,000 coming from the general fund. That also carries annual operating costs with it. And finally, the Fire and Rescue Training Center proposed out at near Beaumont Park it would be a prime area for us if we could. We've been in discussions on sites out there, but it's conceptually it's a regional project, possibly with Goochland ourselves, and we'd love to. We've got a marker for $630,000. We've got some work to do on that project to figure out location and cost. So that takes care of our public safety initiatives in the CIP. I'd be glad to answer any question. I got the grand total on the next page. It talks about this is $18.26 million over a 10-year period, primarily general fund 16.4 million. But it's, any questions the board has on those projects?
Madam Chair, the regional complex is all dependent upon us getting Beaumont.
Well, and we have had discussions with Beaumont about the possibility of a slice. We're not going to get.
But I mean, that would be if that location
Yes, sir.
didn't happen, it's
How?
over.
Don't know about that.
We're still working with Goochland, and I've talked to the fire chief in Goochland, and we're both, whether it's on one side of the river or the other, we still would like to work on that project together.
Thank you. The backup generator. Was there a reason why that wasn't part of the project, the original project? I mean, we knew what was going in it, or has something happened that requires now a backup generator that we didn't know?
I've got Tom Nolan on the line. I might ask Tom to join us Tom, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tom.
The backed up generator, the question, is that the village building?
Yeah, backup generator question at the village building was, no, backup generator at the EOC, $75,000 in fiscal year '22. How did we handle that originally when we redid that building? And why didn't we put the generator in then?
I believe the EOC they're referring to as a fire administration. We already have generators at the 911 center, new generator for the 911 center. And the reference to the 75 for the EOC was Emergency Operations Center, Kurt Nellis operation. And I believe there was opportunity for them to make sure they have constant power for a command post or a EOC operation.
So I can add a little bit more to that.
Thank
Is that request was when the Landmark Center was redone, that the EOC wasn't a part of that plan. We've kind of moved forward in that direction with the availability of space. And with the generator, we're also looking at it to multi-function, not only there, but it could go to another location in the county, say if the generator at dispatch center were to go
This is a
down.
portable.
Portable would be on a trailer, so we'd move it around, and it would be a valuable commodity that could be used throughout the county when it's not needed in an emergency for the EOC.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about public safety as presented? And IT does not get a nice map because it's hard to put on a map. You can see some significant items on IT's request. When you look at the work they're doing over a 10-year period, it does seem to be, when you talk about laptop upgrades over 10 years, well, that's what it costs. But I think there's a couple of projects I'd like to bring to your attention that Mr. Wood has been creative on it. In the middle of that, three from the bottom, you'll see a fiber network extension, and we need to work with the school board on that. But conceptually, if we were to spend $700,000 and run service to all 5 of our schools, we believe that we can save approximately $180,000 a year. And we need to confirm that with the school board, but $180,000 a year in fiber in internet access. And oh, by the way, we can do connections on the residents that live along the way between those schools. So it also connects on county facilities. So when you look at the capital improvement budget, you're going to see $700,000 going out. But on the operating budget right now, I've got $180,000 coming in every year from 2000. I'm not sure where we start, 2023, every year coming thereafter. Now, the school board is going to have some concern about their E-rate money and how they allocate E-rate money. And right now they're using that for, I think, partially for internet access. So we need to work closely with the school board over the next couple of months to figure out how can we make this plan come together. But the business terms of a $700,000 investment with a $180,000 a year return, plus new broadband connections along the way, would be a home run. And appreciate the idea, and we'll pursue it more with the school board to see if we can make it happen. But the rest of it is just general IT planning. Any questions on any of the items on this list?
Questions on this list? Okay.
So here's the last page, a summary of what we just talked about. It's a repeat of the first page. We just went through a $69 million CIP. It's a work in progress. It's going to change 20, 30 times between now and March. But I hope you've got an idea of the projects that are high on your list and some of the ones that are low on your list, and we'll work that out over the next 2 months.
Thank you, Ned. This looks great.
Thank you.
Any final questions?
We just sat through spending $69 million. That's a large number for Powhatan County. And quite frankly, it's with all these projects, it's difficult to wrap your head around.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the real question is how do we pay for it?
Right.
Okay. And so I'm going to be, that probably to me is more interesting part of your discussion than this, because until I understand how we can pay for it and what that means to the citizens of Powhatan County, it's hard for me to get excited about spending $69 million.
Glad you said that, because I want to remind you, we've got the 12th set up as a work session on that topic, but it's a 1 o'clock session. So I want to make sure the board had, as opposed to, it's a 1 o'clock in the afternoon session. So we've got time to work through some of the issues that we're talking about on the 12th, just to get running start on that towards that end.
12th of February,
12th of February,
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Is that a bad day?
You're not gonna believe this. I just changed some medical appointment. More than
He's had
same
this on that we
day.
just approved this on the,
My phone will work tomorrow morning just as well. so.
all right. Well, I guess moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Moving on to the second public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Just a reminder, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. David Anderson, 2120 State Middle States Drive, District 2. Just want to make a comment. I really appreciated the comments that my fellow citizens in District 2 made at the first public comment period. I thought they were well reasoned, thought they were insightful, and I thought just as importantly, they were heartfelt. I would like to say, however, that it kind of dumbfounds me that those comments were made after the board had already chosen to do what you wanted to do. And it just seems totally backwards to me that you wouldn't listen to what the citizens in that district had to say about their seat. It's not your seat, it's my seat and the people that spoke tonight. And I'm sure a public comment period wasn't required legally. If it was, I'm sure the county attorney would have advised you that as the agenda was set. But just because you have the might to do something, it doesn't mean you're right. And as you move forward with a host of other issues, because it sounds like this issue has been decided, and that's fine, I just implore you to look for ways to listen to us. And because I think there's simple ways to do that. And if you don't give us the opportunity to listen to us, then we're going to feel like you're walking over us. And I don't think you want that, and I know we don't want that. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the county.
Thank you, sir.
Kitty Osborne, 1071 Dorset Road. And all these projects, they look wonderful. They seem wonderful. It's a lot of money, as Mr. Cox has brought up. I just ask that we just be very conservative. I don't think as a community, I don't think that we have felt the full impact of COVID-19. I have bought groceries for people that I never thought I would have to buy groceries for. I have paid medical bills for people that I never thought I would have to pay medical bills for. I just think we all need to just be conservative. We haven't seen the full impact on the public, the food banks. Again, I have rental property in Philadelphia. I can't evict my tenants by the governor's orders up there, but I still have to pay my taxes. Same thing is happening in the city of Richmond. So I don't want to evict anybody, but you can't just provide people month after month after month with free rent, especially when your taxes are due. So it's going to be interesting to see this next tax revenue time for the county and how many people have put in for special consideration or whatever. So again, I appreciate the time that you all made this public and we could see the budget, but I am just erring on the side of being conservative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, we'll close the second public comment period. County attorney comments,
No comments.
county administrator comments,
No comments.
board comments.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
this is, first of all, thank you, Mrs. Smither. This is the start, okay, of long-term planning in the county rather than reacting in year by year. It's 10 years, so the numbers are huge. And so it really is an effort so that we can be conservative, so that we can understand what's happening to us and that we can plan for it. And so I'm anxious about the size of the numbers, but really excited about the process because I think it gives us a better idea of how to properly plan for the county and really, quite frankly, to get much more involvement from the citizens should they desire. You look around you tonight, you don't see many people around you. Hopefully we have some people watching at home. But this is information, not to exclude you, but to invite you. Thank you, Chairman.
Madam Chair, we had a hand raised that we missed.
Oh, we did. Okay. All right. Can we go back and reopen the public comment period? Can I do that? Okay. My apologies.
I apologize, Mr. Carver. We missed you on your hand being raised during that public comment, so we'd love to hear from you now, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, I texted my comments into the question and answer period just in case, but good evening. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. My name is Jim Carver. I live at 4245 Steger Creek Drive in Powhatan, Virginia, in the 5th District. As I have always strived to do for previous board members over the past decade plus that I have attended board meetings, I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly express my thanks to Mr. Norvig for his service to our county. Whether I have agreed or disagreed with Mr. Norvig's positions is irrelevant because I'm able to separate that and recognize and respect the efforts that he and all of you make every day because you care about Powhatan County. I've had the privilege of serving with Mr. Norvig on a couple of committees and know how much time and energy he has expended helping keep Powhatan a great place to live and raise a family. So thank you again, Larry, for your hard work and dedication. And thank you, board, for the opportunity to speak.
No one else, right?
No one else.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple comments, but Mr. Byer or Mr. Williams, do you have any board comments? Nothing?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to comment on Mr. Cox's comments. Yeah, we have a CIP, 10-year CIP for the first time in the history of this county. And if you think this is a lot of money, I challenge anybody to go back and look at some of the previous CIPs that were 5 years, and then go look in the out years and the dollar amount and concatenate those two amounts and then look at the total amount. Now, the difference with this CIP is for the first time, we're actually planning to plan. And to fail to plan is to plan to fail. So now we are doing something that every community, I believe, should be doing. I know the state looks forward. I know Goochland County, they've gone out, we brought over Tetchler Bice. They were looking at 25 years as a planning tool. So I'm very comfortable with what we're doing tonight. I'm excited about it. This is a first in the county, and it's something we're going to build on. Now, this is not a statement, Madam Chair, but I think it would be good to have the county attorney, just so everybody leaves here with a record of what the dates are going to be as we go forward with the filling of the District 2 supervisor seat. So, Mr. Lashney, could you go through the dates that we agreed to, the key dates? For example, when we're going to start the advertising, when there's going to be, the cutoff date.
I assume the advertising will start, I don't know when we're going to post it on our website, but I assume it's going to be
Immediately.
semi-immediately.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whenever the publications for the Powhatan Today, I don't guess we'll get in tomorrow's paper, but the next
okay,
couple,
so, and then we agreed to a cutoff date.
January 12th or February 12th was the
Okay.
cutoff date for receiving applications.
Okay.
And then the board will determine how it's going to handle the interview process,
Yes.
scheduled date for, I think the consensus was closed session interviews.
Yeah.
And the board will have to pick a date to conduct those closed session interviews. You need to make a selection no later than March 17th
Right.
or your 45 days runs and the circuit court will make an appointment. I am going to file a petition for a special election for November 2nd. And the applicants, whoever wants to run in November 2nd, will need to coordinate with Ms. Alexander, who's gone, to find out deadlines for getting the number of signatures. But I mean, it'll be a standard election. You'll have to get elected just like you would in any other district race.
So the process is laid out by the Code of Virginia.
The election process for November 2nd will be the standard process. If you go down to the registrar's
But the
office.
process that we're going through now, I just asked you to go through the dates that we did,
Good.
we chose to
Right.
elect, but but that's within the process that's set out by the Code of Virginia.
It's all state code.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Couple final comments. I would like to apologize to the citizens of District 2. I was the one that set the agenda tonight, so I take full responsibility for putting that agenda item before the public comment period. It was certainly not intended. I had invited Karen Alexander, and I knew it was going to be a long meeting, and I specifically asked the county administrator to put that up on first, to have that discussed first. So I don't want anybody to get the impression in any way, shape, or form that I was trying to, halt any kind of discussion or input from the citizens, of District 2 in any way. So my apologies. Thank you. I think that's it. Nothing else? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.